And welcome on in to a freezing Tuesday, January 27th, and hope you are doing well. Again, Joan.
Yeah.
So I figured out why there are so many people without power.
Okay.
People just aren't calling the electric company in the right way. You know, they're texting, maybe they're going on to a website or whatever it is. When really you gotta call the electric company like this.
Hey, you guys!
See, if you do that, then the electric company. That, by the way, so.
Hey, you guys!
Does anybody under the age of 80 even understand that reference? Sam, do you understand that reference?
What?
The Goonies.
No, that's the theme to the electric company.
I thought it was Joan. Impersonating.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No, Joan, do you remember the electric company?
Yeah, I do.
I used to watch the electric company.
Theme song. Hold on. I still know the theme song. No, I don't.
The theme song, maybe it's just me. I couldn't find a good recording of the theme song, but I mean, I remember this.
Hey, you guys!
from like, I remember being a kid and loving the electric company. And so then we're sitting here and we're talking about, you know, power and the electric company. And I thought, hey, why don't I do something, you know, stupid this morning? Because I try to have a really one dumb Dan moment a day here on the radio program. So this.
Hey, you guys!
That's today's.
You're just not going to, like, overplay that, right?
Oh, no, not me. No, never. I would never overplay something like that.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Hey, so Keith has written in. Super text line 615-737-9986. He says, hey, Dan Mandis, huge favor. Can you try to help find where I can fill propane bottles? This would be a great service for my neighbors and myself. Seems like most places are out of stock. He's in Donaldson. So I don't know. I mean, Donaldson.
Tractor Supplies have refill stations.
Yeah, they do. Tractor Supply. Now, I know that there's a Tractor Supply on, gosh, I don't know. Sam, you want to look that up for me? I know there's a Tractor Supply on 70 in Mount Juliet, if I remember right. So, and now people are texting in about the electric company. Yeah, everybody's saying Tractor Supply.
U-Haul. There's a few U-Hauls that still, I know for a fact there should be one in Madison, Gallatin Road. Has one of those old school propane fill stations.
I didn't know U-Haul did those. Okay, very good. I just go to the
only some of them, not all of them.
I just go to my my local gas station and just exchange them out. You know, so usually we have two in my house, and then of course never fails that the second I've got a steak cooking and it's like halfway cooked, Joan. Mm-hmm. And then I realize I'm out of propane, and I've run out of the other propane tank. So now I've got two empty propane tanks and a half-cooked steak. That has happened to me more than once. I'd actually rather not talk about it. And whatever you do, don't ask Amy about it.
Are you telling me you ran out of propane and propane accessories, Dan?
So everybody is saying, okay, so Grand Ole RV Resort in Goodlettsville has propane as well. Ace Hardware apparently as well. So I guess there's a lot of why do I even bother to try, Joan? 7789. We don't all have plenty of, I missed it. Here it is. We don't all have plenty of money, Dan, to just change out our bottles. It's a lot cheaper to just refill. We're not all radio hosts. See what happens when I try to do nice things. You know what? I'm just gonna.
Hey, you guys!
I could just replay this.
I forgot you pulled up in your Ferrari today instead of your Toyota RAV4.
Yeah, my 5-year-old Toyota RAV4. Whatever. All right, 612, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. I absolutely loved the electric company. So what you need to do if you're out of power is just call them like that. It's like the bat signal, but for the electric company. is what it is. Hey, Joan, you think
should probably play it again just to be sure.
No, I'm not going to do it. It's always that last one where people get, and I'm trying to
right
avoid.
Over the top.
I'm trying to avoid the last one because it's always that last one where people say, "Damn it, Mandis, enough." So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it one last time because you know what happens then, Joan, is I do it 5 more one last times.
Right.
Hey, do you think the government's going to shut down? Do you know what the Democrats are doing? This is the most Democrat thing ever. So Democrats now, what they want to do is they want to shut the government down. It's going to happen on Friday. And they want to shut the government down because they don't want DHS funded because they want to defund ICE and they want to defund the Border Patrol. Forget about the fact. I would say this to the Democrats. Forget about the fact that the vast majority of the American people still want mass deportation. Do you remember I said this a couple of weeks ago? I said, Democrats, stop me when you've heard this before. They're going to overplay their hand. And it looks to me like that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to overplay their hand. So, yeah, they are talking about shutting down the government. Donald Trump has some demands of the Democrats. We've got all this and a whole lot more straight ahead. By the way, Jonathan Fahey is going to be joining us at 6:36 here on Nashville's Morning News to talk about ICE, talk about the fact that a new court ruling has given ICE and Border Patrol the permission to start, really arresting these protesters. We'll talk to Jonathan Fahey about that and a whole lot more. A high of 32, feeling like 24, a low of 7 tonight. Joan, what do you have right now for the temperature? I think that's important this morning.
I have 9 degrees.
You have 9 degrees, and it feels like of?
-1.
-1. So, yes.
I just heard from my brother who lives in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're so not used to any of this. And he said he's at 21 degrees.
Oh.
21 degrees outside in sunny Florida. They don't. Their heaters don't even know how to work.
I was going to say, are they going to be okay?
Yeah, they're going to be fine.
Okay.
But it's this cold snap is not just here; it's everywhere in the U.S.
South Carolina's getting it, Joan.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're getting what we're getting too, and so yeah, it is brutally cold. We can handle this though. I mean,
of course.
Says the guy that spent the last couple of days in a hotel. But
with
I didn't
terrorists living next door.
With the little terrorists living next. Well, I'm calling them, the Antifa triplets is what I'll call them. the little girls, 3 little girls that are.
How old would you say they are?
Oh, there's one, Joan. There was one that was running around in a diaper in the hallway of the hotel.
Well, what would you expect the parents are going to do? Just keep them inside the room the whole time?
Put some clothes on her. I'm looking at the people, and I see the little. It had to be maybe Jameson's about 1 year and 4 months old. So this little girl must have been about 8, 9 months old, running around in a diaper, screaming her fool head off. Speaking of which, speaking of fools and screaming their heads off, Caroline Leavitt was talking to the White House press briefing yesterday in the White House press corps. They were talking about a number of different things, including a possible government shutdown. This is part of what Caroline Leavitt had to say.
Is the administration willing to separate DHS funding from other funding bills in order to avoid a broader shutdown?
Look, at this point, the White House supports the bipartisan work that was done to advance the bipartisan appropriations package, and we want to see that passed. Policy discussions on immigration in Minnesota are happening. Look, the president is leading those discussions, as evidenced by his correspondence with Governor Walz this morning, but that should not be at the expense of government funding for the American people, which would include, as you know, Alex, FEMA funding. And we are in the midst of the storm that took place over the weekend, and many Americans are still being impacted by that. So we absolutely do not want to see that funding lapse, and we want the Senate to move forward with passing the bipartisan appropriations package that was negotiated on a bipartisan basis.
So what is it the Democrats always say? Don't let a good crisis go to waste. So that's what they're trying to do. This is what the Democrats are trying to do. They are trying to cut the funding for the Border Patrol and also ICE. So they say they will not vote for the funding bills, generally speaking, unless there are reforms to the DHS funding. After the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, the Democrats smell, I believe this is what's going on. The Democrats, they smell blood in the water, and they want to, or blood on the streets, and they want to take advantage of it. That's what they're trying to do. That's what the Democrats want to do. And Chuck Schumer put out a posting on X the other day, basically saying this is what we're going to do. They want to cut spending to DHS, the agency that runs ICE and Border Patrol, because they feel like they have leverage. Now, there was a moment, and it's kind of funny, actually. Do I have time to play it here? There was a moment on Fox News where, because, Democrats think that they have the upper hand and that they're going to be able to defund. By the way, do you know what's crazy? What's crazy is that the Democrats, didn't they learn, Joan, from when they got their tails kicked with the whole defund the police movement that they were, all about a few years ago during that whole Summer of Love thing? And they were all about defunding the police. And then they realized, of course, that the American people were very much against defunding the police. And they just, but 6 months later, they were like, no, we're not for defunding the police. Really? Because we've got all of these videos and all of this audio where they were clearly for defunding the police. So now they're trying to defund ICE, and they're trying to defund the Border Patrol, and there are a number of different things that they want to do. So you have some like Ilhan Omar and AOC and some of those people, nincompoops, to use a phrase from The Murphy Show. They want the complete abolishing of ICE and the Border Patrol. That's what they want. They want the complete abolishing of ICE and the Border Patrol. Then you have others that say, okay, well, what we actually want is for them not to be allowed to wear masks. We want to just basically cut their funding. We want to know their identities, right? So there's different levels of what they want to do to ICE and the Border Patrol to try to make life, quite frankly, harder for them. But there was a story that came out yesterday. I love this. There's a story that came out yesterday that went viral very quickly about what the Democrats can actually do to take away funding from DHS to defund ICE and the Border Patrol. I want to welcome on into the program Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, always great to have you on, and very cold. Jonathan, where do you live? Are you in Virginia?
I'm in Virginia, right outside of D.C.
So are you going to be leaving Virginia because of your new governor? I mean, is she that horrific, Abigail Spanberger, that you're going to flee Virginia, or no?
We talk, in all seriousness, my wife and I talk about Tennessee and Florida all the time. So I don't know if we will. We have kids, but it's so much worse, which you have to remember with Democrats, it's always so much worse than you think it will be, and it is up here.
Listen, Jonathan, I'm a transplant from that area too here. Your kids are going to love it here. Love it.
I love Nashville, so I would,
Well, hey,
it wouldn't take much.
Hey, Joan, watch me trigger the audience. Okay. Hey, Jonathan, we've got In-N-Out now.
Oh, wow. You know what you need? You know what you really need? You need a professional football team.
Really? That's going to be the the dividing line?
If Nashville can get a professional football team, I think maybe that's the reason they're so bad. They don't want the state to get overrun.
I think Joan, he's being facetious because of course we have the Titans who are, I don't know what you call like the equivalent of a pony league football team is.
Oh.
But the Titans are kind of like, JV. You know what I'm talking about? Yet they're putting them, Jonathan, into.
We have that up in D.C. Yeah.
Yeah, they're putting them in a big old massive stadium, and the ticket prices are going to go through the roof. I, in all seriousness, I would like a professional baseball team. That's what I would like. Anyway, on to business.
That would be
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, if you decide to come to Nashville, let me know, because then you'd be obligated to come into the studio for these 635 hits, and I know that you would just love to do that.
Oh, that'd be great.
All right, so very, very good. Let's see. We used to be the guy in charge of ICE in Donald Trump's first administration. So I've been talking about a number of different things, but number one, okay, so the Democrats and Chuck Schumer, they're trying to essentially defund ICE and the Border Patrol. They're threatening to shut down the government Friday night into Saturday morning. You think this is something that they're going to win? It doesn't sound like President Trump is willing to play on this.
I think they lose this, and it's sort of Democrat 101 is they always overplay their hand. And right now, after the last couple of weeks in Minnesota, they feel like they're on like a win with this immigration issue, and it will ultimately it's George Floyd again, meaning the politics of it. They massively overplayed the riots and protests and wanted to keep that going on forever. And I think during it, and certainly in hindsight, people feel like they were really burned. So I think it's a bad strategy for the Democrats on the long term, because if the election were next month, I say, yeah, they probably win on this thing. But by November, good economy, crime stays down, American people, this is going to be a blip in the whole scheme of things.
You have, of course, you and I have not spoken since the death of Alex Preddy. So, I mean, we have President Trump, and he is out there talking this morning and yesterday afternoon. He's had these positive conversations, he says, with both Jacob Fry and Tim Walz. I almost feel like the president is raising the white flag a little bit, and I do understand that, Minneapolis is a tinderbox, but I just feel like things are not going to change just because you've got Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino are going to be leaving Minnesota, and Tom Homan is going to be going in, and Trump is talking to Frey and Walz, because the Antifa members and the protesters, they're still going to be out there, and they're still activated.
Exactly. And remember, the Democrats, they're complaining about ISIS tactics and this and that. But that's all the big lie. What they're really complaining about is their voters being deported from this country, meaning the illegal aliens. And they give up the game every single time they talk about it, because it's really funny. Like Amy Klobuchar gets on, whoever else gets on, and all they can say is ICE needs to leave, as opposed to we need to find a way to get rid of the illegals in a different manner. They never say that. They say basically illegal aliens get to stay and ICE needs to leave, which is not a tolerable thing. And yet I think I think President Trump might actually be sort of a step ahead here, because he brings in Tom Homan, and if Tom Homan basically meets with these guys and says, hey, you need to give us the people in your jails and then help get the criminals that are on the street. And when they say no, then it's like, hey, that 85% of the American people agree that that's reasonable. And President Trump has a reasonable position with respect to the other people, which is, hey, we'll give you $2,600 and help you pack and give you a free flight to leave. So everything about it, I think ultimately it gives them the opportunity to expose Walz and Fry even more. But I don't think he would. Yeah, it would be a major mistake to do anything that resembles a pullback or slowing it down, because there are greater principles at play, not just immigration, but other federal laws, and you can't have some state or some city or some activist decide where and when federal laws can be enforced and which ones. So, and that doesn't just apply to immigration law. But just with immigration law, if they sort of back down, every other one of these Democrat cities is going to do the same thing, and then it actually gets harder overall rather than any easier. So
the death of Alex Preddy, you've got a guy who, and MAGA is divided on this clearly, but you've got you got some that are saying that it was not a justified shoot. You've got other people saying that it was a justified shoot. You've got a guy showing up to a protest against ICE and the Border Patrol, and jawing it up with a law enforcement. And basically, and I know that you know the story, but for people who have not seen the video, basically law enforcement, they're trying to arrest an illegal alien. Two women are impeding. They're getting in the way of law enforcement. And then Preddy decides that what he's going to do is he's going to get in between law enforcement and these women. And then, of course, we all know what happened. He got pepper sprayed. He got thrown to the ground. My opinion is, Jonathan Fahey, that they took his gun out of his waistband, and as that officer is walking away, that gun somehow went off, and then you had, in the confusion, in the heat of the moment, and in the fog of war, that is when law enforcement shot at Alex Preddy, ultimately killing him. So now there's a lot of criticism from the Trump administration, where you had Kristi Noem come out and they said that, he was brandishing a weapon. I don't believe that he was brandishing a weapon. You can see on the video, he was not brandishing a weapon. The Trump administration also saying that, he was going there to cause as much damage as he could, massive amounts of damage. I don't know if that's true. So that long-winded question to ask you, in this case, do you think the Trump administration may have overplayed it a little bit, specifically talking about Kristi Noem? I'm going to ask you to cogitate on that because I've got to check the roads real quick. Did the Trump administration, perhaps maybe Kristi Noem, overplay their hand when they did say that this Alex Preddy was brandishing a weapon when it's clear that he was not?
Yeah, that seems to have been wrong. I guess my question would be, with all of these things where sort of the initial narrative or initial whatever happened tends to evolve, like what did she know about the situation? Was that being reported to her? Because certainly the first things I remember hearing on this is like, okay, this guy had a gun and extra magazines. So did somebody fill in these gaps and provide that information to her, meaning, oh, he was there to do maximum damage? Is that something they filled in themselves? Because it made sense at the time with these objective facts, and that might have been before the videos were looked at and things of that nature. So I don't know, but I do think the thing that's important with these is we've seen in the past when the narrative is the anti-cop narrative, right? Yep. We see with Michael Brown, and what does that cause? A city to burn down, right? So you do think the inclination to initially defend the police is a better practice, I think, regardless of how it comes out. I think secondarily, they need to investigate it. They need a good investigation that will stand up to scrutiny. And I think your theory is the thing that makes the most sense as to what happens, because these guys are in the most highest stress possible situation they've ever been in their lives. They hear gun, and then somebody hears gunshots. They think they're being fired upon by the guy that had the gun. That makes the most sort of logical sense to me. And that's one of these situations where it ends up being an awful situation, but nothing unlawful about it. Because if this officer had a reasonable fear, which is the guy had a gun, he's resisting, he's fighting ICE, they hear gunshots, that is, that's when training kicks in. And remember, this is all within probably like a split second or even less than a split second would be to make all of these decisions. And that's always you read every one of these court cases that talks about excessive force and stuff. And the courts are always very careful to say, hey, the court's job is not to second guess, use 20/20 hindsight to look at some situation in slow motion, because the officer doesn't have the benefit of slow motion and multiple views and 20/20 hindsight. He has to make that call.
Yeah, and the other thing I got to mention, of course, is that, this Preddy, he's yelling at the officers. And then when you look at what is going on today, these days, where we've had, I think I heard two or one, but we've had a couple of ICE agents, their fingers have literally been bitten off, right? You've got all of this chaos with all of the horns going off and everything else. And so I think that when you look at the overall culture and atmosphere and the environment of what was going on, I think that the chaos, by the way, the chaos that Jacob Frey and Tim Waltz have been sort of cultivating in Minneapolis, I think it adds to the carnage.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's kind of funny that you talked about not funny what happened, but what the officer lost his finger, and that's not even really made the news, which should be like a huge story. And it's like the Democrats don't even care, because if they actually care about law enforcement, they would care about this guy, the guy that got his finger bit off. He has nothing to do with the shooting, but they don't say anything about it. And that's their protesters. And also one thing on the Preddy situation, it doesn't seem like he was there to protest. He seems like he was there to interfere with law enforcement. That was what he was there to do, not just say, hold up a sign and say, I don't like ICE. It seems like he was there to do more than that, which is to disrupt and impede, which, again, that's a felony. And, so that adds a lot to the equation, too. But, a lot of these protesters, I think they're sadly, that anyone would take guidance from Jacob Frey or Tim Walz, but I think they are. And, they take no responsibility, meaning Frey or Walz, for the havoc they've created. And now we're at the second time, 2020, Minneapolis basically burned down under their watch. And it's like, this is, people are at some point going to figure out, like, wait, the common denominator is Tim Walz and Jacob Frey every time this city goes to, to hell. So I think that's a problem too.
Well, one of the things that and Jonathan Fahey joining us, one of the things that I find interesting, which has made like Fox News and talk shows, and I've been speaking about it the last couple of days, is this Signal chat controversy where, you've got, I think I saw you've got thousands of people that are involved in this, and they're looking up license plates, and they're following ICE agents. They're letting people know what vehicles that they're driving, and this is very, very highly coordinated in how they're trying to prevent ICE and the Border Patrol from doing their jobs. And it's all, again, very coordinated. I saw a guy with a lot of military expertise. He called it a low-level insurgency with what is happening as far as this Signal chat discovery. So I guess that is all part of the discussion, too. People seem to be surprised by that, Jonathan Fahey. I wasn't surprised about that at all because we know that, the Democrats are highly organized, whether it is stealing elections or combating, ICE as they try to do their jobs.
Right, and they always mischaracterize these protests as sort of this organic, rise up against some sort of issue when, in fact, it's highly coordinated and the intention is to prevent illegal aliens from being deported. But, yeah, they have to get to the bottom of this, and, they're going to be looking at, there's a couple things, I think, federally that could be charged here. One is obstruction of justice, conspiracy to obstruct justice. The other, which they haven't been as aggressive on as I think they could be, which is alien harboring, which if you're doing things to prevent illegal aliens from being detected by ICE, that's alien harboring. If you're doing things to encourage them or induce them to stay here illegally, that's also alien harboring. So those are two federal felonies that they should be looking into. And these people aren't just like, hey, let's meet here and get our signs ready and go protest some thing we don't like. It's, hey, let's find out where ICE is so we can prevent them from removing illegal aliens. And I think that's the legal problem with all of these folks, and they need to get to the bottom of it. And I think it's important if they can bring cases to do so, because this is intolerable, and bad things have happened, but many worse things are still very possible of happening, and particularly the law enforcement with what we've seen from these groups.
Well, this headline from Fox News, anti-ICE protesters arrested in Minnesota after throwing items at officers refusing to disperse. I like that ICE is now able to and will start arresting these protesters, and they've been tormenting these these ICE agents and the Border Patrol at these hotels and out on the streets as well. I think they need to make these into like a felony.
Right. I agree. It needs to be a felony. And you know what's interesting? If you think of, that judge in Wisconsin, it was Judge Dugan, I believe. Yep. When she was charged, everyone was in her camp. And then when she was convicted, crickets. And also the Democrat politicians stopped their antics of interfering with ICE and stuff. Remember, it was like every week a new Democrat wanted to get locked up so they could get attention, like Alex.
Yes,
and stuff.
I do remember that.
But it's funny that it really, like when she was convicted, that judge, there was very little on Twitter, on the news in support of her. It was sort of like, oh, we're now going to throw you under the bus. You were the useful idiot for us, but now that you're not useful, you're just an idiot and you're gone, And I think that could happen with some of these protesters as somebody gets convicted and they, have to spend some serious time in a penitentiary. It might send a different message to some of these people that might be inclined to get involved, but it may deter them.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Jonathan Fahey joining us. some very concerned listeners, Jonathan, on our super text line. They want to make sure that if you move to Nashville, I'm putting that in air quotes, don't actually move to the city of Nashville, because that's full of, like, Democrats and all these folks. You want to go to a nice suburb. I live in Wilson County. I used to live in Williamson County and Murray County as well. So if you have some county concerns, if you want to know where to move, if you do come to Nashville, you let me know, and we'll all help guide you to a proper neighborhood that is, good enough for Jonathan Fahey.
Well, that would be great. Yes, yeah, because where we are now, it's getting scary up here in Virginia. I
got to tell you, I've lived all across, my audience knows this, but I've lived all across the country, including in Richmond, Virginia. And Tennessee is absolutely by far my favorite place that I've ever lived. And so, Jonathan Fahey, is always great to talk to you here on Super Talk.